Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome, you guys, this beautiful Saturday morning to 𝐘𝐨𝐮'𝐵𝐺 Sisterhood Podcast. I am your host, as usual, Sophia, and today I just wanted to hop on real quick and to share what is Bowen Natural Systems Theory. So I also wanted to integrate what's the question segment. Allow me, guys, to break it down a little bit. From Murray Bowen's lens, natural systems theory, what is it? So when we think about our emotional system, we respond to patterns as problems are more stabilized over time. Thoughts and behaviors, issues are unresolved from the family of origin. Now, therapists work with more than one generation in therapy. Let's look at differentiation of self. This is a process in which an individual defines themselves within the family emotional system. This is done by how an individual think, plan, and follow their values while separating from their family emotional system. So the solid self in this concept is from the lens of the differentiated individual, can have strong feelings, but can shift to logical reasoning for differentiation in terms of the decision making and problem solving. When they choose, they're able to function based on personally defining values, beliefs, convictions, and life principles. So what is the pseudo self? The undifferentiated persons tend to act solely on the basis of emotions. In other words, they are emotionally reactive. Individuals are easily mimicking others' feelings, views, rather than developing their own, and very often become fused with another person. The emotional triangles are the smallest stable units in the family system. They are formed when the two-person system is absolutely not able to maintain the necessary level of differentiation. And so what happens is they bring in a third person. Why? To reduce the level of anxiety. It freezes conflict. And it becomes more so of a chronic, situation where they're diverting from what is actually taking place. So in essence, what this is saying is that the relationship is undermined here because now there's a third person. The nuclear family emotional process versus the undifferentiated ego mass. So the emotional forces in the family, the lack of differentiation in the family restrains family members' abilities to regulate emotionality and manage anxiety as well as the stressors. So the family projection process in this, we'll see one, the parents project their immaturity onto their offspring or their child. When you look at the multi-generational transmission process, in each generation, this child is involved in the fusion within the family emotional system. And so we tend to notice that the emotional atmosphere in their new family, right, influences their children's abilities to regulate their own emotionality. And it's often seen as a way to tolerate their emotional separation. So then what is the emotional cutoff? This is where we are able to examine the reactivity or the emotional distance. So for example, one could move away to another country, another state, and doesn't mean that the issue is resolved, right? It creates this distance, emotional distance. The individual tends to deny the importance of their own family. And so this is where we also see that cutoff plays out, right, in this emotional space. So the societal emotional process, this is where an increase in social anxiety, very often, even in the therapeutic space, we notice an increase in social anxiety. And this gradually lower the functionality of differentiation in the community overall. In the sibling position, we look at birth order as an important factor. And birth order, understanding birth order, it's generally where the child is chosen as the object of the family projection process. Very often we look at process. So process is referred to the patterns of emotional reactivity. So thus, in our therapeutic space, or at least in my therapeutic space, I would be able to utilize processing questions in that space as I meet with families. The genogram, guys. So when we look at genogram, what is a genogram? Or some may refer to it as a family tree. This is where we're gathering information in terms of, remember I spoke earlier about the generations. Normally we look at 3 generations. So the history of the nuclear family, and then we begin to trace significant relationship patterns. The therapist uses the process questions, as I mentioned earlier, to encourage family members to think about how they react, not only how they react, but also respond in relationship with other members. So individuals are responsible for their own actions or behaviors, even though problems take place in a relational context. So again, from a systemic lens, every behavior makes sense in context. So if we're looking at the genogram, then we are looking at, the family here, one family, another family. So this is where we'll see the grandparents. Over here, we'll see mom and dad. The symbol for the square, it's going to be about dad, males. And here we're looking at mom, and then we're looking at the grandparents here. And so that's very important, as we may notice right here, it's uncle, aunt here, another uncle, aunt, and then we can also incorporate cousin, right? The cousin here. And it's important to notice the son, daughter, right? All of these things are so important to notice on a genogram. Right here, you will also notice that we're incorporating in this space as well, because it's important to notice, again, like I said, 3 generations, right? And so this is considered, well, at least for me, when I'm able to utilize a genogram in my family sessions, then I'm able to utilize that to, better understand how different patterns play out, but also the genogram facilitates the conversation, right? And so this is where I'm able to build that therapeutic alliance as well before we dive into the presenting concern. And I would say I love to integrate the genogram in a therapeutic space for, just a better way of understanding how multi-generational dynamics, functionality within the family, whereas my clients are able to, utilize the genogram to better understand how different generations or family of origin may look. And sometimes it's another conversation starter as well. So genograms are super important in one's therapeutic space if you choose to do that. So that's what I wanted to be able to show in terms of Bowen Natural Systems Theory. So, as I mentioned before, let's get into an activity. So we're going to name the concepts, choose a category from that concept. And guys, you may be able to leave a comment below on any concept, when I say any concept that resonates with you. Again, there's no one size that fits all. Understanding as well, and I'll be able to show the differences again in terms of when you are working with a family from a systemic lens, as well as from a mental health perspective. When you are working from a mental health counseling, you're looking at that individual and how they internalize what that presenting problem may look like, as opposed to a systemic lens when you're working with the entire family to see how the presenting concern plays across the family system, the functionality. So not just that individual and in that internalized space, but also from a relational space. Again, no presenting concern, no problem happens in isolation, right? Like I said earlier, every behavior makes sense in context. So let's look at the answer in terms of, the answer should be in a question format. So we're going to ask the question. Let's go, guys. Here's an example. So what is the concept with individuals separating themselves from their emotional system as they think, plan, and follow their values? Ta-da! The answer should be differentiation of self. Okay. Are you ready to play some more? Let's play some more. Okay. Game on. What's the question? What is a solid self? An individual can have strong feelings, but can shift to logical reasoning for decision making and problem solving. Okay, so in this space, you will notice, yes, there are strong feelings. Not only that, but this individual is able to shift from the logical reasoning for decision making. So again, remember we talked about reactivity in that undifferentiated space, but here, because this individual is operating from a solid self, they are thoughtfully reflecting, before they make a decision. Okay. So that's all right. So categories, therapist goals. Goals look like decreasing anxiety as clients sitting in the space. And two things can be true: increased differentiation. So there's a decrease in anxiety and an increase in differentiation. Another goal as the coach is to educate. So you are an educator, you are directive. You're also not getting what? Triangulated. Absolutely not. So before we get to that, so in the assessment, as I highlighted earlier, there's a genogram. So this is where we get to utilize the family genogram. The space in which there is an opportunity for the therapist to not become triangulated. So again, detriangulation. We're looking at facts. Remember earlier I said we're looking at facts versus feelings, and we do not take sides. Guys, I cannot overemphasize this, especially when we're working with couples. We're neutral. We do not take sides. Okay. Up next is, what is the smallest unit in the family system when the two-person system is not able to maintain the differentiation? And guess what? They bring in a third person. So this is where we see, a conflict is not resolved, but this can become chronic, right? Team C, you're on. All right. So this is the triangle, as I said earlier. Okay, guys. So emotional cutoff. Here, you deny the importance of one's family. And we'll see here, there's more of a facade in terms of independence. Like I said earlier, just because an individual relocates doesn't mean the issue is resolved. It's where we see more of a distance in terms of an emotional distance. Okay, guys, so that's important for us to notice in terms of what's going on in the family system. It's important to notice the nuances of what that may look like for the families, the emotional system, functionality. When we're able to utilize the genogram, we're able to utilize processing questions. We do not take sides as therapists. We're coaches, we're educators, we're directive. And so it's important to be able to notice detriangulation in these spaces when we're working from a Bowenian lens, Bowen Natural Systems Theory. So I just wanted to hop on real quick and to share these tidbits on Bowen Natural Systems Theory from a family systems lens. And I hope you're able to take away something from this episode today. Again, I encourage you to watch this video, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment for us below. And if you are able to, you may also go ahead and, drop a question for us. And I will share more on Bowen Natural Systems Theory in more videos to follow. That's it for today, guys. Take care for now. You may also follow us on socials. 𝐂𝐨𝐻𝐸 on Instagram and also on Facebook. 𝐂𝐸 Sisterhood in this community. If you feel led to do so, you may also join our sister circle on WhatsApp. I will also leave my ebook link below so that you may go ahead and, peruse that at your earliest convenience. Thank you, guys. And I hope everyone had a beautiful Thanksgiving with your families and friends. So take care until the next episode.